everyone, welcome to Southern Wreaths. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel. Today I'm going to make this really cute St. Patrick's Day wreath. These are the supplies I'm going to use to make this wreath. I don't use the flowers and I don't use all the ribbon. So I'm going to start by adding the burlap underneath my wreath frame so that I can push it up through the bottom. I'm going to feed the zip tie through the burlap and then attach it to the frame that way. This just is extra security so it doesn't pull through. And then I'll just trim that away. So to do this method, you want to push the burlap from the bottom through to the top and just make it even. And then here I'm just going to use a ruler to decide what size I want each poof to be. And I decided on 3 inches. And then you can just base the rest of your wreath off of the first poof. You just want to make sure you hold it in place as you're pulling the rest of them through. So after you do the outside ring, you'll move to the center ring and then the very center ring, if that makes sense, because there's 3 different sections to pull through. And I like to start on the outside. It doesn't really matter where you start. So once you finish going across, you want to kind of push it over and then go back to the first most outer ring. You can twist if you want to. That just kind of secures your burlap. I don't like to do that because I feel like it wastes, burlap. I don't know if it wastes a lot. I just feel like it does. So then you'll just continue adding your poofs. This is the pull through method, or one of the pull through methods. There's another one where you pull it on either side of the bar. And I was able to fit 3 different poof sections in each section. This is a 5.5 inch burlap. I believe it's 30 feet. I get it at Walmart. And it's really easy to work with. If you're worried about burlap fibers, you can always wear a mask while you're working on it. This one doesn't shed at all. I have no furry things or any kind of leftover with this particular burlap. And it's wired on the ends, which is nice. So there's no fraying. And take your time, make sure they're all even. Really hold the previous poof in place so you don't accidentally pull that, because you want to always be pulling from your roll of burlap. And you can use any size burlap to do this method. If you had larger burlap, you would want, you wouldn't put as many poofs in each section. If you had smaller, you might put more. I do kind of like to keep count as I'm going, just so I know that all of them are even. So once you finish that section, you just jump the center crossbar and go to the next section. And I'll just show you this one real fast. As you're going along, if for some reason you don't know how many poofs you put in each section, you can just turn it over and count. And then I just like to go through and kind of ruffle it around and make sure it looks nice. I don't like it to go in a straight line. I kind of like the wavy look. Okay, so once you finish off that roll of burlap, I'm going to show you how I add the next one. You can either do it where you just finish off this roll and then start another, but I just like to put them in the same zip tie. It's just easier. And I was lucky enough that the last piece was big enough to make a poof. If not, you just pull it through to the back. So I am feeding it through the burlap again. And I wanted to make sure the burlap was facing the right way, which it doesn't really matter, but when it pulls off the roll, it's kind of easier to work with. And then I just push it through the remaining of the first roll and then just attach it to the frame. And you don't have to weave it through. I just like to do it that way just because it makes me feel like it's more secure. And it's okay that it's loose. It's all not, you know, none of that's going to matter once it's finished because you fill it up with the burlap. All right, now I'm just going to continue making my poofs. If the excess burlap is bothering you, you can always cut it away now. I'm just going to wait till the end. And I'm, again, being very careful not to pull from the previous poofs. I'm pulling from the actual burlap. So that's what it looks like when it's done. And I still have about half a roll of burlap left. So this took 1.5 rolls of burlap. So it wasn't a lot, which is nice. So I'm just going to trim everything away before I attach my burlap, my last piece, to the frame. And even these look nice on the back. Like, they're not really messy with lots of pipe cleaners. So these would even look okay on glass doors. And those of you that cover up the back of your wreaths, this one might not be one that you have to worry about so much. It already looks okay. And then again, I'm feeding it through the burlap and then just attaching it to the frame. And then I'll just trim everything away. So I wanted to put the green in, and there is a way that you can add the green burlap in as you're going. And I'm just cleaning up any strings that I have at the sections. But back to what I was saying. But it takes a lot of burlap when you do that because you have to kind of run it behind the rest of it. So I just decided to make little pieces and just attach them with zip ties to the frame. At first I went, you know, like every few poofs I would add a piece of green, but in the end I ended up adding a lot more, and I really liked the way it turned out. So I just kind of pinched it to get an idea of how big I wanted my piece of burlap to be. And then I'm just going to cut to. I didn't want to go too far because I wanted to see how it looked on the actual wreath. And you can see the ends of this burlap. If you play with it a lot, it does start to unravel. So you might not want to do it a whole lot. See, I put them side by side, and then I'm just going to stick the zip tie through. It didn't want to go through all of them, so I kind of have to pull them apart and push it through one side and then the other. And then I just find the frame and I stick the zip tie under, pull it back and add it to the, you know, pull through part. And then I mainly use my trimmers, my wire cutters, to tighten it. Just because I can't really get my hands down there to get it as tight as I'd like it to be. You can see that one's kind of big, but if you move it around into the burlap, it kind of blends in. Really necessary. If you move it around in the burlap, it kind of pushes itself down and where it needs to be. And I'm just going to show you how I do the next one. I did the same thing. I fed it through the burlap and attached it to the wreath. See, this is how I had it at first, where it was like every 3 poofs, but I went through and added more. I just felt like it needed a lot more. So I'm going to make a bow, and I decided I wanted the tails to be facing the same way, because if I just started the bow just regular, the clovers would be upside down. So I just cut that separate and laid that down, so now when it's done, the clovers will be right. They'll both be facing the right way. So I thought I was going to make a smaller bow, so I kind of started with the top part. That wasn't my intention. I ended up adding stuff to the back. So you can always do that, and I'll show you how I did that in a second. But I'm just making sure I'm making them even. There's probably about 3.5-inch loops. And you just put it down there, make sure it's even, twist it, and do the next one. So I added a zip tie to the first part. You can see it up there on the right. Just because I wanted something else behind it. Something with a little more, I guess, stiffness. Because the This burlap ribbon is really stiff. It's really nice and it holds up the bow really well. Okay, so I attach those together with another zip tie. And then I'll go through and fluff my bow. And I made sure I put a pipe cleaner in through the zip tie in the back before I tightened it. And I also added a tiny loop in the center. And I have all that in my other bow video. So I didn't like the way the burlap looked against the burlap, so I decided to add a piece, like a bow of green burlap behind it. So I just figured out how big I wanted it to be and then just used the zip tie, and I just wrapped the pipe cleaner around it. I like the way the green made it pop off. It does kind of look like, at a certain angle, it does kind of look like the burlap is just coming out of the wreath wrong, because, you know, I have them inside the wreath. So if you don't like that look, you don't have to do anything like that. I'm feeding the pipe cleaners through the burlap on either side, and then I'll tighten them. I don't think that was absolutely necessary. I don't know why I did it. It made sense at the time. See, I just think it popped off just a little bit more with the green behind it. And then I just feed through and find the wire frame, and then just push the pipe cleaners through and wrap them around the frame. And you could make bigger tails if you wanted to. I did at one point add the flowers to the wreath, and I hated the way it looked. It did not look good at all. So I just took those off, and I'll save those for something else. I like the way how simple this was, and it wasn't a lot of glitter. There was just a little hint of gold, which of course goes along with St. Patrick's Day, so I thought that was nice. It has a little trim of gold on the burlap ribbon and also the gold clovers. I went ahead and used up the rest of the green burlap and filled in everywhere that I thought had holes. And this is what it ended up looking like. I really like the fact that I added in the extra burlap. But that's it. That's how I made my burlap St. Patrick's Day wreath. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can always email me at craftingwithlee@yahoo.com. Thank you so much for watching, and if y'all learned anything today or liked my video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.